Hello and welcome to the March 24th Water Commission meeting. This meeting is being broadcast via WebEx, via live and recording.
Okay, at this point in time, I would like to call to order the Water Commission meeting for March 24th, 2025 at 3:31. So we're getting a good start here. So the first thing we need to do is do a roll call and see who's present. I do know at this point that Roger Hudson did call in. His absence is excused, and he is fighting the flu pretty bad right now. And Max will not be attending in his place today, but we still have plenty of members here, so I think we're doing really great. So, with that being said, let me turn it over to Marna, if you want to start handling the roll call, please.
Sure. Jack Hilbert.
Here.
James Eklund. Don Langley.
Here.
Clark Hemmelman.
Here.
Jim Morris.
Here. Online.
Mickey Conway.
Here.
Evan Ela.
I'm present.
Harold Smethhills.
Present.
John Tonner.
Here.
Tricia Bernhardt.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for roll call. I appreciate that. I think we can pursue at this point. Everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting, except for Harold. And then, and we hope your hand is doing better now, sir.
It is. It's healing.
So I could get a motion for approval of the minutes, or if somebody has any changes or edits they would like to have made, please bring those up at this point.
Motion.
We see none. We have a motion from Mr. Conway. Second? From Mr. Tonner. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? I think
I'll
we're good to go.
abstain, as I was not present at the last meeting.
Pardon, sir?
I was not present at the last meeting. I will abstain.
Thank you.
I
I think
was,
we have the same for Harold is going to abstain also.
Yes, I want
So we've got the record correct. Okay, great. Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to take us to the next point on our agenda, which is referral items from the commissioners for consideration. We have two items today. One is the Ice Tong rezone, and the other is the Antelope Crossing minor development. And I would like to make a note, too, if you would, Marna, that Mr. Eklund just walked into the room, so he is present and accounted for, and so we're all squared away. We can cancel that APB out on him now. So anyhow, at this point, do any of the commissioners have any questions about these two applications or one of them? Tricia.
I just have a comment.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. So while I don't have an opposing view to the Antelope Crossing, which is SB 2024-066, I do think that cumulatively, at some point, all of these projects we need to look at together. This is 4 lots and 4 separate wells in the lower Dawson using groundwater. They have the legal right, but as the engineer that reviewed it pointed out, it doesn't mean that she reviewed the physical aspect of whether the water is there or not. So again, cumulatively, all of these start adding up, and I have no opposition to this specific project, but just making the comment.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Anyone else? I would just like to make a note. I was actually surprised to see that one. That is most people don't remember, but Don and his wife used to own that whole piece of property. We used to sit in a lot of committees with them over in Parker, and they left it to their family. So now they're finally dividing it up after 20 years. It's just been sitting there for that whole time. It's interesting because there's another 90 acres next door to that parcel. I imagine they might be looking at doing something with too. So probably something you're right, Trish, needs to keep an eye on. Okay, any other questions? Then we'll move on with no comments other than the concern that Tricia cited, if you don't mind, please. And now we have some discussion regarding the water plan and some outreach materials. I do believe we have a representative here also.
provide a bit of info, this is Lauren Pulver with staff, an introduction. Will needs no introduction, but we've been working with our water consultants to put together public outreach materials and kind of refine the strategy for public outreach. You'll see in the packets the water provider survey with some tweaks that will describe, as well as the one-pager that will be used to inform the webpage as well. So I'll let Will take it away.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Good afternoon. Well, with regard to the water provider survey that was sent to you last week, we did make some tweaks to that with regard to section 4, which has to do with water supply. And we made really a change to each of those questions, minor change to each question regarding reusable water. And so I think it's clearer now than it was last week on what we have in there for reusable water and how that needs to be separated out. Also, there were a couple of tables in there, and we've simplified those by reducing the number of columns in those tables. So fairly minor changes, but wanted to make sure you guys knew about those. Okay, also with regard to outreach, we had planned to have a separate stakeholder group, and the idea for that stakeholder group would be to have a broad cross-section of interests that could help guide us with the water plan. And the fact is that you all are a good broad cross-section of interests in the water plan. And so we're now looking to move away from having a completely separate stakeholder group, and then instead focusing our time and effort more on the focus groups. Now, the focus groups, the idea there would be to have groups that are centered on a particular topic, that have a particular expertise and interest in the water plan, and different groups that could give us input on specific issues with the water plan. And so, for example, a couple of focus groups that have already been mentioned would be one for all the water providers. It'd be good to just get a group of water providers together and talk through the aspects of the water plan with those guys, and have a few meetings with them. And then another potential focus group would be the individual well owners that are out in the countryside. They certainly have a strong interest in the water plan, as Trish can attribute, and so that it'd be good to maybe have them as a focus group as well. But we wanted to open it up and see if there are some other groups, or if those groups sound good, if there's other groups that the commission would be interested in considering for a focus group.
Anybody have any ideas or concerns or questions? I just have one.
Yes, sir.
Because we're divided up into zones, is there a way to delineate the focus groups on the zones? Because I think the rural water impacts that they're experiencing in like Zone C up on the valley is probably different than what you would see in Zone A over by Roxborough. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious if you guys are planning on breaking them up that way, so that we can at least get a delineation between which each zone is experiencing at this point?
Right. We had not talked about dividing them by zones, but that's certainly a good thought, and maybe that's one option to break up that into smaller groups.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because I think it might be beneficial if you do that, at least keep track of it as much. I'm not saying you have to have 3 different meetings. I'm just saying keep track of it so you can understand when someone's talking about an issue, where that specific issue is coming from and what part of the aquifer might be their biggest concern and the impact.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a good thought. I like that. Thank you.
Clark Hamelman. Another thought would be, in addition to the water providers, you might consider having a focus group of elected officials from the different elected entities within the counties. Parker Town Council, Castle Rock Council, the Metro District up in Highlands Ranch, and so forth. Because those people, at least theoretically, have their ear to what their local constituents are talking about.
Right. Okay.
Harold? Go ahead, Harold.
I had a bit of confusion on the focus groups. seems to me focus groups are going to have two functions. One will be, how do we get the right data and understand what the data is? Once we have that, then focus groups, okay, now what do we do with it? So having different groups at this point the focus of these focus groups should be, are we asking the right questions to get a comprehensive picture of what our water supply truly is and what the issues are? I would hope that we would hold the policy questions, including elected officials, until we know what we've got. Otherwise, we're going to wind up with trial by advocacy on what the outcome would be, when really we should be focused only on, are we getting the right data in the right way that we can do something with to understand what we've got. And so I would encourage us on these focus groups to limit it to those kinds of discussions only at this point.
Right.
With an agreement at some point, we'll come back and talk to you about the policy questions. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, we'll just be advocating for positions, and I think it'll be it'll degrade the whole process.
So maybe at first to have a meeting with focus group and tell them about and discuss with them our process and make sure that everyone's comfortable with the way we're going on that before we, at the end, come back and solicit input on policies.
I think that, yeah, but comfortable mean, are we going to get the right data?
Right.
You know, being uncomfortable with it because it might show some things you really don't want to deal with is really not appropriate. But comfortable only to the level, are we going to get data we can do something with? Mm-hmm. You know, I think we're 100% a plan on advocacy of what we need to do with water in the county. But until we have that database, it's all advocacy and not results.
Okay, any other questions? Evan?
Yeah, Evan Ela. I have a couple of suggestions that I think should be added to the questionnaire. And I don't know if I talk to you, Will, or whatever.
I'll just talk to the mic. That's the key.
The first one, you know, in 4.2 there, you're asking the providers what their total firm water supply is. And I think it'd be an additional question should be added to ask them the basis for how they determine firm, because that can vary across different providers. And we don't know if it's the 3-year 1950s drought, the early 2000s drought, or some other measure that they're using to figure out firm. And I think it would be interesting and maybe useful to know how uniform the determination of firm is across the providers. And then the second thing I think would be a good data point for us all is to ask for a 10-year trend for each provider of their per capita water use expressed in gallons per day. Maybe a winter number and a summer number. Just to see the trend over a 10-year period, the most recent 10 years or some 10-year period, fairly recent, to see, number one, the differences among the various providers, but also see which way the trend is going, up or down. I think we probably would acknowledge it's probably going down, but how steeply, I don't know. So I just think that would be a good additional set of data to get.
Yes, sir. And we've requested at the end of this for them to provide a conservation plan if they have one.
Pardon?
In the questionnaire, we've asked them to provide a water conservation plan if they have one, and that may include some of that information, but it'd be good to go specifically ask for that if they've got that.
Okay, Tricia?
So I was just going to ask, basically, how is the interaction of the focus groups and the public meetings going to occur? I think that some of the emphasis on what people are concerned about would come out in the public meetings, and that might help identify who the focus groups are. Just wondering how that's going to interplay.
Well, we had hoped to identify the focus groups separately from the public meetings, but that's a good thought, as maybe there's a group in the public meetings that make more sense to consider as a focus group. But if we could identify ahead of time, that would be ideal, because our first public meeting will be a virtual meeting. I'm not sure if we can get a really good sense for a particular interest from that. So,
Sean?
Yeah, and on the the questionnaire, one thing I think would be interesting is to know their current debt load and then their financials. Because we ask them what projects you have planned, but we don't ask them what do your finances look like. So, and my guess is down the road, that's going to increasingly be an area the county is going to be asked to participate in. I think also when we go back to groups, and I agree with Harold, whenever this happens, I think some other groups we could possibly look at for focus groups is developer, realtor, EDC type community, since they're kind of on the vanguard of taps and understanding about water or what the people buying homes are desiring. And I thought potentially ratepayers from the various water providers, John Q. Public, maybe that's an area they get to participate at the table as opposed to just 2 minutes or 3 minutes at the microphone. And then we had individual well owners. I think that's.
Okay, thank you.
Got it? Okay. James, yes.
Thanks, James Eklund. So a couple of comments here. One, I'll start off with piggybacking on what Evan said about definitions and just making sure that we're getting apples to apples comparisons across. Even single family equivalent can be different depending on who you ask.
Right.
So I'd use, that firm yield, reusable can be a defined term. So just clarifying those terms and whatever the definitions are. The other thing is that we have a number of reports and reporting that has to go to the state. As you know, you put some of those together for different clients, and this probably doesn't even need to be said, but just so it's clear that you're asking them for as much of that kind of stuff they're reporting to the state as they're reporting it to the state, like a conservation plan. They have to have that on file with the CWCB,
right?
If they have one, and just making sure that we're getting what the state is trying to also kind of cheat for this consistency element, and if we can kind of just make sure that what they're reporting to us is going to be what they're reporting to the state.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good thought.
Okay, back to Evan.
Yeah, Evan Ela. One thing that occurred to me as Sean was talking about financing, and there's been a lot of activity in the legislature the last couple of years on tap fees, particularly by special districts. So we could ask these providers just how they develop their tap fees, what they are, and whether they're broken into components of water resource versus distribution system or treatment system or whatever. It would probably be good to have an idea of how those vary across the county.
Anyone else?
And then
James?
piggybacking on what Sean said about financing, we ask them in the survey about their capacity, and I'm wondering if we can, just add in their what constraints exist, financial or otherwise, for them to move forward.
Harold?
Thank you. Kind of piggybacking, and I think, Sean, we're saying the same thing. Order of business 1 is what do we have and what do we need? Order of business 2 is how we pay for it to build these plans. So I really hope in our first round we stay focused on the questions of where are you getting the water, how reliable is it, and that doesn't get into here if there's any comments on the well fields. And I'd like to see some question on that, if they're using wells, what they're seeing in terms of decline, et cetera. That would be very helpful. And then the reuse, and I think James is right. How do we define reuse? How is it being reused? How does that work? That would be helpful. To me, reuse is you're able to get water, retreat it, and either exchange it or reuse it. If it's beyond that, we need to know what that means, and maybe there's some creative things out. And then I'm not sure I understand the difference from our standpoint between surface water and alluvial water. because the alluvial water actually impacts the stream. It's just
Right.
underground surface water, so I'm not sure I understand the relevance of that.
Yeah, surface water would be a diversion off of a stream, and the alluvial water would be from wells, alluvial
But
wells.
the alluvial is shallow wells, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
I mean, and that's depleting a stream somewhere.
Right.
So I think you might get a better picture if you focus on whether it's alluvial or direct diversion, if it's coming out of a stream, and then what stream, so we get an idea where our water comes from.
Okay.
I think that might be helpful in your 4.3. And I think any qualitative comments on well fields would be helpful in this early round. Thank you.
Anyone else? James?
Are we
Yes,
just?
Jim Marr.
Oh, sorry. Well, 1 second. Are we also providing comment on this, or are we just on the survey
I
still?
think we'll move to that next.
Okay.
Okay.
Never mind. Keep going. Yeah.
Jim,
sorry.
you have a question online?
Yes, on the provider survey, are we interested in getting data from the providers on their unaccounted for water?
Good. Can you do me a favor, please, and repeat that loudly? Okay.
On the provider survey, are we interested in their data on unaccounted for water?
I would say yes. That's a good thought to request that information. Unaccounted water meaning leakage through their pipes or where they produce water that they're not able to bill for. So that could be addressed as a conservation issue.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir?
Yeah, unmetered water, I think, right?
Right.
Tricia?
Yeah, just one last comment. The larger water districts are not going to have a problem filling this out. They have staff that can help with it. But what about the smaller water districts that have a lot of trouble with filling this out or don't know how to respond? How will we try to obtain the data and the information from the smaller water districts or ones that just cannot respond?
Yeah, that's a good point. A questionnaire like this might be kind of overwhelming for a small district, and the data that Mr. Eklund was talking about would be for those water providers that have more than a couple thousand acre feet. And so I think we would try to do the best we can with the information we get, recognizing that smaller water providers don't have as large of an impact on the water supply picture as the big providers. So maybe there's some assumptions we can make in there to fill in some gaps.
So one thing on that particular question, I think, which is a good point. A lot of our districts are formed because of somebody has a piece of land, they want to develop it. We've moved on. We're trying to get them out of the aquifer. So you have a lot of small districts, and that's what's happened to us. But a lot of these really small districts, they're not run by water managers, to be quite honest with you. They're run by, in some cases, quite frankly, a local resident who stepped up to do this work and got elected at the latest district meeting. So I think when you approach this, please try to delineate and provide some assistance that might help them get through this application process, this survey process, because I really do believe some of them are going to look at this and say, it's a what? And then there you go. So if there's some way we can approach and help those so that we can get a good, accurate picture, that would be great. Okay, thank you. And I think that is right along the line of what Tricia was saying. Okay, anybody else? Well, let's move on to this little.
Okay.
Is this public?
No, sir, not yet.
It's addressed.
Yeah. So there's a project description, just a project schedule showing major phases of the work, a QR code for folks to connect with us and get on a list for information about the project and to provide input and questions through that.
Anybody have any questions they would like to bring up at this point? Harold?
Heck with it. Harold Smethels, have a suggestion. It seems to me just aesthetically, and sometimes aesthetics are important.
Harold, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize. Could you make sure that your mic is on and pull
I thought
it towards
it was on. Do you have a
And maybe just pull it closer to you?
Oh, okay. I'll get
Sorry,
closer.
thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Spit into the mic, Harold.
All right. Aesthetically, it seems to me that as you look at this, the purpose is engagement and outreach. The purpose of this is what's our water supply demand, what does it mean, and development, and the engagement and outreach falls out at the bottom of it. So I would, if it were me, I would have project management, of course, obviously, but the primary purpose is water supply demand and analysis, and that flows to land use and to the water plan. Throughout, we'll be doing engagement and outreach and focus groups. But I think it makes a much stronger statement as this goes forward. Let everybody know we're not here to gain. We want to outreach. There's nothing hidden. We're open. But by golly, our goal is to figure out what we have for water and what the land use needs are going to be. So I would switch that all around, and the emphasis must be the analysis, the land use policy, and the water plan.
So you would drop the engagement and outreach to the bottom of the chart?
Absolutely, the bottom, and that's important. I'm not for a second saying it isn't important. It is, but our goal isn't outreach. The purpose of this program isn't for outreach. The purpose of this program is to figure out what we have for water, where we're going, and what's going to happen if we don't do something. That's our purpose, and so I think that needs to be an overall, overriding communication to everybody, one person.
Okay, one thing I would like to point out too for the commission, I know when we first looked at this plan and we looked at the public outreach and the stakeholders, I just want to remind us that that point there is actually fluid, because if we deem we need to have more, or if we deem we need to move one or change the date of one, we have that opportunity. So just understand that phase 0 engagement and outreach, because you see how it goes over multiple quarters, but there's nothing in the last, looks like 3 quarters of that second year.
Right.
Part of that is because the project's ending, but I think that just keep in mind as we go through, if we feel we need to adjust those times, those dots, we will have that opportunity, okay? James?
Thank you, James Eklund. So the intent of this piece is that this is a public-facing piece, correct?
Yes, sir.
This goes to the public, and I'll just give you some thoughts from having done this for 5 years of my life, and that is that you want to clarify your call to action when you're talking to the public. This is a Gantt chart, and I get what Harold's saying about that. And if this was for our purposes, that's great. You move this stuff all around. But it really needs to, if I'm a member of the public and I've never come to one of these meetings, and I don't even know anything about this process, I get something like this. This is going to be overwhelming to me. I don't know where to engage. I don't really know what to look at first. And it's really well done, and there's nothing inaccurate about it at all. And you do have the QR code, which I have not tried out yet, but I would, if you want people to respond to something, you have to say, we want to hear from you. And I would use those exact words. We want to hear from you. Your feedback on water supply, conservation, development, and growth priorities will directly shape Douglas County's long-term water plan. They have to know what they're doing, why are they looking at this, and what they're supposed to do with it. The scope and the stakes need to be very tangible to people. The goal of the 2050 Comprehensive Douglas County Water Plan is to build a more reliable and resilient water future. That's why we're here. That's why we're sitting around this table. Ensuring we have enough water to support homes, businesses, agriculture, and open spaces through droughts, population growth, and changing climate conditions, or whatever you want to say. But people are like, why now? Why am I being asked to opine on this or contribute? I'd highlight the opportunities that they're going to have for public engagement. There are going to be multiple opportunities to participate. including in-person open houses, virtual forums, online surveys. Every voice counts in shaping a sustainable future so that they feel like this isn't their last chance. If they don't get what we're putting down here, there's going to be more opportunity for them to approach this whole thing. And then just kind of broadly make it accessible. As Douglas County grows, we'll analyze how much water we'll need and where we'll need it most. And then the final thing is, once the website is up and running, I think you're probably going to get a ton of traffic to the vast majority of the traffic we generate, hopefully there's a ton of it, will go to that place. And just making sure that the interface with the QR code and that thing, I think that's a great idea. And, having visuals of a simple map. These are all things that helped in Colorado's water plan immensely, and I wish I had known at the start of that process instead of the end. Yeah. So for what it's worth, well done, though. And this is very well put together. It's eye-catching, it's visually stimulating, and you need that element, too, to talk to the public.
We have a good team, and Caroline from the county helped us as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Good.
If I could just piggyback on one thing, I'll just bring your attention to one item, and that is in the second paragraph, first sentence. It makes it sound like this has nothing to do with anybody but the water providers. So that is where I would just add something about well users and other, independent, whatever. Just a couple of words would clarify right there who's all invited to this role, to participate and access. This tells me, when I first read that one up, and thanks, James, for bringing that up, because I forgot about that. It told me that said, just water providers. Okay, well, maybe I don't care.
Right.
Okay.
Good feedback. Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Harold?
Just a question as I read this. The planning process, Harold Smethels. Just a question. The planning process will take approximately 18 months, understand. Focus on all unincorporated areas of Douglas County. I think the planning process involves all of Douglas County. It just, when we get to the land use policy, that is more with the county unincorporated. But the overall water, and I come back to the demand water supply analysis of demand, that's going to include everybody. So right. I think that needs to be clarified. And then the other question that Sean made some comments that really resonated with me, and as I was listening to James, cost. Somewhere superimposing in your discussion about affordable water and what it costs. Because I've got a feeling we're going to see some great, and I think you're right, we're going to see some great plans that we may or may not be able to afford, and we've got to figure that out. And the challenge ultimately may be, how do we pay for it in a way people can afford it? Anyway.
Okay, any other questions? Well, I don't think we have any more. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for great input. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. And thank you for putting together this stuff and bringing it in. I appreciate it a lot. Really do. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to staff. We've been working on bringing in resources, and I can tell you, we've been working together, Don and staff and myself, and I have met with Parker Water and Castle Rock Water and both of the water directors there, and they're, by the way, if you want to see something impressive, just go talk to them both. They're quite interesting, really educational. I've had an opportunity to do that, and then I know we've got Dominion Water, and what we're trying to do is to look at things to give staff ideas of who we can bring in. So I think Parker and Castle Rock are committed, just a matter of formulating dates. Would also recommend that sometime we need an 18A, full 18A blow up on water, literally to go through it, all of us here, so we know where Douglas County's regulations currently sit. We're not making any changes to it. Let's just keep that in mind. But what we can do is point out concerns and points of opportunity. Let's just put it that way. Okay? And so we'll bring that in and have them talk about that, because we want to get our minds fresh and on the same page. We all want to be able to know that we're somewhat up to date on that, each of us. So just FYI. And at this point, I'm going to turn over to Katie.
Thank you, Katie, for staff. I'm actually going to ask Lauren to go ahead and get our presenter set up, and it's going to be Dominion Water and Sanitation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Harold again, just to clarify, I had requested an opportunity to have the Israelis present some of their technology, and the timing just couldn't work out, and so Andrea, who just came back from vacation today, has agreed to fill in. But we are set then for the Israeli at the next meeting, and getting that they're getting their presentation together. In fact, tomorrow morning there's a brand new Israel. Colorado Chamber of Commerce has been organized. They're having their kickoff tomorrow morning. It's going to be, I think it'll be very helpful when we hear from them. So they're getting organized. Remember, when we present, it's like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning for them, because it'll be a presentation from Israel. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Glad to be here. Glad to tell you a little bit about Dominion Water and Sanitation District. Some of you are quite familiar with this information, and others, I think this will be provide some education on who we are and what we do. And appreciate being first, so feel free to ask questions and interrupt. As Harold said, I'm just coming back from spring break, so if I stumble over words, give me a little bit of grace. So, but my name is Andrea Cole. I'm with Dominion Water and Sanitation District. I'm the general manager. I've been there almost 4 years now. So what we plan to discuss today, or what I hope to present today and provide information on, is just a brief overview. Who is Dominion? What is our primary role in Douglas County? Who are our customers? What are the primary components of Dominion's water and wastewater system? What are Dominion's current and future water supplies, and what does that look like from terms of renewable, reusable, all the things that you all were just talking about for the Water Master Plan for Douglas County? And then give you a brief update on status of current water supply and wastewater infrastructure projects that we're working on, some highlights on the ARPA funding that we received and how that's being used to benefit Douglas County, and Dominion's future plans. So about Dominion. So Dominion is a wholesale water and wastewater provider in Northwest Douglas County. We were created in 2004. We are the first established district in Douglas County. Thank you for your support for that application and referral to the Board of County Commissioners. That was just recently heard and approved a few months back. As I mentioned, we were formed in 2004. The county had the vision and is continuing to advance that vision through this development of the master plan to bring access to renewable water and centralized wastewater service to the region. And that's really one of the forming principles of Dominion Water. In addition, our service area is about 33,000 acres. And as I already mentioned, we are a wholesale water and wastewater district, and our fees come from rate collection and those connection or tap fees. So we don't have property taxes, mill levies, anything. We just collect money from our ratepayers. So here's a little bit of information on just Dominion's role in Douglas County. So we're here to provide clean, reliable, and sustainable water supplies to the residents of Northwest Douglas County. We acquire, develop, and manage water rights and supply contracts with an emphasis on renewable water supplies. So as of today, we are 100% renewable water supply. We do not utilize groundwater within our system at all. We do have groundwater, and that the intention to use that groundwater is for firming supplies. So when there is hydrologic variability in our system, we can bring that groundwater in to help continue to meet those demands of our customers. We also develop and maintain water and wastewater treatment facilities, and I'll get a little bit more into that, as well as those conveyance systems. We're also a regional leader in sustainability and water efficiency. As many of you have heard through various presentations and discussions in front of the Board of County Commissioners, the Douglas County Planning Commission, Dominion, in partnership with Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, is really leading the edge on water sustainability. So we're looking at approximately 0.2 acre feet a year per single family equivalent. And really, most of that is indoor. So the indoor usage is 0.13, and then that small remainder is what's being used outdoors. So there's not much use for landscaping within the Sterling Ranch community. We're also innovative, collaborative, and a regional partner. And so you'll see on here, I put just a simple graphic of rainwater harvesting. So Dominion is leading the state in bringing regional rainwater harvesting to fruition. So we're the first and only pilot project in the state of Colorado. We're looking to implement and put the first project online with Prospect Park, which will be in Sterling Ranch. And so we'll time the development of that regional rainwater harvesting vessel, that storage vessel, if you will. We'll time that with the development of that park so that it's all as seamless as possible. We're currently in the process of finalizing the engineering report that will go along with the water rights application. And as many of you know, water court right now is about a 3-year process to even get on the docket. So it'll be a little bit of time before we get the right fully adjudicated. But we have captured over 10 years worth of data through lysometers and weather stations and stream gauges to account for every drop that would naturally go to the stream versus what is generated with the increase of impervious area. So this is just a simple schematic that shows our service area in the lighter blue and then shows some of the existing metro districts that are located within our service area. And so, as I mentioned, we were formed in 2004 primarily to serve the community of Sterling Ranch, which is an unincorporated portion of the county that will be a home to probably well over 30,000 Coloradoans and Douglas County residents. In addition, we were also formed to provide renewable water supplies to those existing communities that were within our service area. And so those are the communities of Lavier, Sedalia, and Thunderbird. And that's why our service area looks the way it does. It was very strategically drawn to be able to incorporate those existing communities within Dominion. And this gives you just a little bit more detail on our service area, who our neighbors are, and the infrastructure is really what I want to talk about on this particular graph. So Dominion, we have reliable or redundant systems, if you will. We have what we call our eastern supplies and our western supplies. So as of today, we've been primarily relying only on our western supplies. And those supplies are provided through designated water agreements that we have with the city of Aurora. So what Sterling Ranch did very early on is they purchased water rights that were of interest to Aurora and then traded them. And in return, we receive water rights currently from the Strontia Springs Reservoir, and it travels through that red line that you see on the map from the river over through the Rampart Tunnel system, which is owned by Aurora, to Rampart Reservoir, and then continues up the red line to the red circle, which is the Moore Water Treatment Plant. So some of that water is Roxborough's water, and that is separate. That is single-use, first-use only water. And then our water, like I indicated, is a dedicated water supply, and that's 480 acre-feet of water that comes through that system. We also jointly own the Moore Water Treatment Plant. So the water treatment plant currently is for 4 MGD. It can be expanded and will be expanded as growth defines that, but we own half of that facility. It's currently operated by Roxborough Water and Sanitation District. Then on the east side, we're connected into WISE. So you all had a presentation from Lisa Darling previously that talked a little bit about South Metro WISE Supply Agreement Authority, as well as WISE. And so we are the largest subscriber of WISE with 1,325 acre feet. And to bring that WISE deliveries, you can kind of see that orange little hoop line that comes through there. So our WISE delivery comes from through Parker, through Castle Rock, and then we constructed an 11-mile, 30-inch pipeline known as the Eastern Regional Pipeline in the ground and is connected as of today to bring our WISE water supplies into Sterling Ranch. And so then you can see as you go along that cyan-colored line, if you will, the Eastern Regional Pipeline that connects to our high zone tank, which is a 2 million gallon tank, and then down to the low zone tank, which is a little over 1 million gallon tank that we have for our distribution system. That WISE water is, as we know from your presentation from Lisa, is interruptible. So that means that 2 out of 10 years it could be 0. And so you have to firm those supplies. You have to have something to back that up in case it is 0, 2 years. And so how we've done that is we've kind of split that water, if you will. So 700 acre feet of that water is firmed by Castle Rock, and that's through an agreement with Castle Rock. So that's called the firming supply contract that we have with them. That firms our 700 acre feet. And then the remaining native, if you will, 625 acre feet of water will be firmed with our groundwater rights in Cherokee Ranch, which is located just adjacent to Sedalia. And so we have drilled a well there. Many of you may have saw the signs and saw the drilling activities. That well is not equipped. The well was simply drilled so that we could get aquifer characteristics, so we could figure out what the quantity and quality of that water is so that we can effectively plan what those costs would be to bring that groundwater into service. The other thing you'll note on the Eastern Regional Pipeline, when it was designed and constructed, it was strategically designed such that there were already in place turnout points for future connections. And so that's what those circles, I'm not really sure what color that is, a grayish color, I guess, circles indicate on the cyan blue line. Those are strategically located turnout locations for future connections to users. I don't think the wastewater, so then on the wastewater side, we have 2 lift stations currently. The L that you see at the topmost of the Sterling Ranch, which is the orange shape on the graph, that's called the Titan Road lift station. And so then that lift station goes through that force main, and then the L that's right adjacent to Roxborough Water and Sand and Dominion is called Willow Creek lift station. So those are our 2 existing lift stations. That then is combined with Roxborough wastewater, and it goes through the O line, which is the red line, and then to Roxborough's conveyance system. So currently all of our wastewater goes to South Platte Renew for treatment. But that is something that we are changing. Thank you, Douglas County. With the addition of the ARPA funds, we were able to build a regional wastewater treatment facility, which will allow us to capture those return flows and keep them in Douglas County for use for residents within Douglas County. We're also in the process of constructing a new lift station for Filing 7. It has the fancy name of the Filing 7 lift station. We'll have to come up with something different. But that lift station is currently under construction and is a little north of the red circle water treatment plant line. And will connect into the existing force main infrastructure. So I have 3 graphs that kind of walk through what our existing water supply looks like and what our future water supply looks like. And these have been simplified to just pie graphs. We do have much more detailed supply and demand curves that help us project out the timing of much needed projects. But as of today, because we have very efficient water usage within our service area, so we have almost 3,000 homes within Sterling Ranch, we're actually only using we're using less than 480 acre feet. So we don't fully utilize the 2 Aurora contracts, so the 230 and 250 to date. We're somewhere around 380 to 400 acre feet for those 3,000 residents is what we're seeing. But accessible to as of today, we do have the 230 and 250. We also have that 700 acre feet that I talked about, that firming supply commitment agreement that we have with Castle Rock. You'll notice that under there we put 665. That's for losses. So there is contractual losses and some losses through that 700 acre feet. And so we have accounted for that within our water supply portfolio. And then we also do have the Wise water, which could be firmed with Cherokee Ranch. So currently we have around 1,700 acre feet a year of water that we use today. As we look forward into the future, so future renewable water supplies, again, you see the Aurora 230 and 250, the firming supply commitment agreement with Castle Rock for the 700 or 665. And then you see the 625 Cherokee Ranch groundwater that backs the Wise 625 or the native water. And then we also have South Platte Juniors, which I should have hit on the other map. I apologize. So also as one of our projects, we'll be building a diversion structure, pump station, and pipeline to connect into the Moore Water Treatment Plant. And the purpose of that is not only to capture our wholly return flows, our reusable water that's going to be discharged from the wastewater treatment facility that we're going to be building here shortly, but also gets the South Platte Juniors. So we have adjudicated right of 25 CFS on the South Platte, and so that will allow us to capture some of those flows. We also, go ahead.
Where is that diversion on the Platte?
All right, let me see if I can do this. I'm not used to being on this side, so to bear with me. So that will be located, I know you can't hear me if I walk away, but can I? You don't have a pointer. So see the blue diamond? It'll be located just downstream of that is where the diversion will be located.
Downstream of the wastewater
Yes.
plant?
So that diversion structure will allow us to fully capture all of those return flows. It will also allow us to capture the 25 CFS junior water rights that we have. We also own 500 acre feet of storage in Chatfield Reservoir and have an exchange right to get those waters up to that diversion point. We also own some Hocking water, which is outside of Alma Fairplay area. So we do have some water rights in Hocking. And then additionally, Aurora would like us out of their infrastructure. So we will also then be capturing that 480 acre feet off of the river once we have our diversion structure online. Thank you. You let me go back to that so I could hit on a couple things. All right, so future renewable supplies. This is where we have our South Platte Juniors, which again, they're subject to hydrologic variability. They are junior. Denver Water has senior water rights on that river. They own the river, basically, between Strontia and Chatfield Reservoir. So we need to have those firming supplies of our groundwater to help augment when there are times of lower flows within the river. But you can see that bumps our firm yield to 2,457 acre feet per year with a renewable goal of 100%. And obviously that renewable goal is going to vary, again, depending upon that hydrologic variability, right? So if it's a year where there's no Wise deliveries and no juniors available, obviously that renewable supply that year would be lower. But the majority of the time, or average time, it'll be close to that 100%. Oops. Now I'm changing colors. Okay. And then this is, build out conditions. So this says we have about 4,000 acre feet of water. So to be precise, 3,986 acre feet per year of water. And again, you see the 230, 250, the Wise 700 that's backed by the commitment with Castle Rock. And then you see the Wise 625 backed by the Cherokee Ranch groundwater, the South Platte Juniors also backed by the Cherokee Ranch groundwater. And then we have the biggest piece of our pie is the reusable return flows. So at build out, obviously this varies. It depends on how many homes, how many people are flushing toilets. But at our assumed build out currently, that's about 1,529 acre feet a year of water. And we have done, losses to that to account for what goes through the system. So just to give you a preview of what Dominion's up to. So under construction, we are, as I mentioned, part of WISE. So Parker is currently building the Reuter Hess Water Purification Facility Pump Station. It had a shorter name, but they changed it to this much longer name. Thank you, Don. But that's currently under construction. I believe it's almost complete. So we are part of that, and that will help get our WISE water through Parker's infrastructure and then connect back into Castle Rock. And as I mentioned, we're also in the middle of construction of the Filing 7 lift station. We also have a design build contract with PCL Construction on the Chatfield Basin Water Reclamation Facility. So that's the wastewater treatment plant that is, it's located at the old Roxborough wastewater treatment plant site, for those of you that are familiar with that, in the Waterton Canyon area. So that is also underway. We also have various projects under design. So we have the South Platte Diversion Pump Station and Pipeline. Currently, Tetra Tech is our conceptual designer on that work and is helping us with some of the permitting. We need a 404 permit as well as a 408 permit that has to do with a flood flowage easement into Chatfield Reservoir. So both of those permits need to be garnered in order to build the diversion structure. We're also in the process of designing the regional water line connection, which will connect the community of Leviers to renewable water supplies, as well as a potential future development that is adjacent to Leviers. And then also as part of the, and actually that should be under construction. I apologize, I didn't catch that. Under construction currently is the DIA connection, so that's also part of WISE. And so that allows us to bring in the Denver water into the WISE system to help provide some additional supplies. And then for planning, as I mentioned, we're working through the regional rainwater harvesting project. And so that Forest Green has been helping us out with the conceptual design of what that looks like. In addition, as I mentioned, we're working through the engineering report for the water rights application. We also are putting the Eastern Regional Pipeline into operations. So the pipeline was constructed a few years before we needed it. However, we have been in the process. We have fully connected that line. We're in the process of chlorinating it and disinfecting that line so that we can put it into service. My operators have been working pretty diligently on this to get it done prior to irrigation season, as we need to pull the water through the high zone tank. In addition, we're working through the Cherokee Ranch well connection, what that looks like, what type of treatment do we want to do? Do we want to look to do more of a regional well field, or do we want to look to just connect one well at a time? Those are things that we're working with Forest Grid on as well. And then also a feasibility analysis. We're working on regional groundwater solutions in collaboration with the county. So this is just a little bit more on the Eastern Regional Pipeline. So again, this is an 11-mile pipeline. It's 30-inch in diameter. Estimated capacity through modeling is around 13 MGD. So it has substantial capacity to bring flow into Northwest Douglas County. And it connects Dominion into WISE. It will also connect our Cherokee Ranch infrastructure into that pipeline and will allow us to connect to the community of Sedalia. We're currently working on an emergency interconnection agreement with them. As I mentioned, it is connected. Disinfection has started, so it's started in March of this year. And we are finalizing operation plans with Castle Rock and Roxborough Water. Roxborough currently operates our tanks for us since they operate the water treatment plant. So we're working through making sure that everybody is talking on the same page when Castle Rock is sending water from their side of the system, that there's water available in the tank and that the tank can take that water. And we're expecting water deliveries to start in May of this year. So this is a little bit closer detail on the South Platte diversion. You can kind of see in that tiny aerial on the map the existing wastewater treatment plant. So just located downstream of that will be the South Platte diversion. And as you could see on our previous pie graphs, it's a pretty critical piece of infrastructure for us to bring online. And it allows us to fully capture all of those return flows and put them to beneficial use. So we've completed the initial feasibility study. We're in the process of design. We've received a grant from CWCB for $866,000, and that is helping us get through an up to 60% design. We also have had a couple conversations with the Corps, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, CPW to start outlining what the permitting requirements are going to look like. The 60% design is anticipated to be completed in 2025. And then we're working on a memo to the Corps on permitting documents to help define what we're looking to do. We also, to do this project efficiently, we reached out to our partners and our neighbors. And so we completed a land swap with Ravenna to allow us to locate our pump station on the Ravenna property. So Ravenna is moving their maintenance facility to be a little closer to the river there, which will allow them to develop Lot 1 down close to the wastewater treatment plant site, but we were able to trade some property with them in order to get a good location for our pump station. And we are anticipating that the construction of the diversion pump station and pipeline will be completed by 2029, and we have an estimated project cost of that of $26 million. So other regional projects, so in partnership with Douglas County, we received $20 million in ARPA funding to construct a regional wastewater treatment facility. In addition, and as part of that agreement, Dominion has agreed to design and construct regional wastewater infrastructure and regional water line connection for the community of Leviers. That's also in partnership with another development that will help fund a large majority of that. So this is just a rendering of what the future wastewater treatment plant site will look like. So this is currently in design/construction because it is a progressive design build contract that we're utilizing to deliver this project. So we have grant funding of $20 million, of an estimated project cost of $34 million. So a little bit of a gap there, but we're working through that. And so the plant will be a 0.9 MGD state-of-the-art wastewater treatment facility. It will be a membrane bioreactor plant. We're also looking to pilot PFAS treatment on the wastewater side, and that's something that we hope to get kicked off this spring to see if there's some things that we could do on the wastewater side to help reduce some of that contamination. We've selected PCL Construction, Stantec as their designer, to do that work. The construction is set to begin this year, summer 2025. I will note that there is work that will occur before that. We have to do some abatement. The original wastewater treatment plant was built in the 70s. 72 is when that plant was constructed. So there is, unfortunately, asbestos out there and some lead paint that we have to abate before we can demo. And what we're going to do is we're going to demo the existing superstructure site. So everything above ground is going to be demoed. But we've done some condition assessment and gotten some structural engineers out there in the basins and clarifiers, and they've determined that those are all structurally sound. And so we're going to be reusing the basins to help allow us not only to achieve our aggressive costs, but to also to achieve the aggressive schedule. And we anticipate this to be fully operational by January of 2028. This is just a little bit on the regional water line. So I pulled this out of the CDM report, and I highlighted it in blue so folks could actually see it instead of the black line that was there. So this will provide renewable water service to the community of Leviers. The project is 90% designed. We're currently in the process of refining that to include future development that's adjacent to Leviers. So that work is in process. We're actually waiting on some alignment from the developer. There's some questions on exactly where that pipeline is going to go to connect into this. So we're working through that, but we're anticipating to kick off construction in 2026. And then also the regional wastewater collection. So this status, we're in design. So the project has been conceptually designed, but there's some tweaks and modifications that need to be made to that to account for that future development. And so we're working through that. But a big part of this project is that lovely green circle on there. That's the wastewater lagoon that Levere's currently has. And so the big part of this project is to connect Levere's and to decommission that existing wastewater lagoon. So that will also kick off in 2026 for construction. So this is my last slide, I promise. So what's ahead? Regional collaboration. We're going to continue to work through the design and construction of the Chatfield Basin Water Reclamation Facility, and are really looking forward to seeing what can be done out there, what can be done on the river. What can we learn from the PFAS piloting, and what are some advances that could be made in the wastewater industry. We're also working on that regional wastewater connection to help out our neighbors and to advance that regional solution, as well as that water line connection to provide renewable water supplies to communities that lack the ability to bring renewable water supplies to their homes. Also responsible planning for the future. So we're in the process of completing what we call a water efficiency plan. We don't really call it a conservation plan, but because that's what we do. We don't conserve. We look to be efficient with our water supply. And so we have grant funds that we've received from the state to complete this effort, and we're about 60% done through the draft plan, and we'll present that to residents in Sterling Ranch to get their feedback. In addition, infrastructure investments to meet growth and demand. So we continue to grow with Sterling Ranch. And so we continue to look to be good stewards, to not only from a water supply and delivery standpoint, but also from a financial and fiscal responsibility standpoint. So we continue to evaluate that pretty much on a daily basis. And then robust operational planning. So we're really looking at honing in on our water master plan and some of the frameworks and accounting that we need to set up. Demand management. So as I indicated, we're leading the state and honestly the country when it comes to water efficiency and demand management. And we continue to advance that and require that within our rules and regulations for any future development that may tie into Dominion. They are required to meet our demand management as how we have outlined it. And then customer relations. We continue to work with our stakeholders and do stakeholder engagement with the Sterling Ranch Metro Districts, as well as the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board and other retail providers. We also are looking to provide accessible information related to water supply, quality, and resiliency, and also just generally working with all of our water provider neighbors located within Douglas County and seeing how we can all be good partners. So that's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. Any questions? Start with, yes, Evan.
Andrew, that was excellent. Very good presentation, very thorough and informational. I just had a question about the groundwater entitlement under Cherokee Ranch. Is that deeded and decreed, or is it leased, or how do you have that?
No, it's deeded and decreed. So it was originally part of United's water supply portfolio. And when United was escorted out of the county, Castle Rock was asked to acquire their assets. And we acquired a portion of those assets from Castle Rock. So they are owned fully by Dominion and are adjudicated.
Sean?
Ditto. Great presentation. What keeps you up at night?
Answering all of Harold's questions. No. There's a lot going on. I mean, we're constantly moving. We're constantly, being adaptive to change. I think one of the critical pieces is going to be getting this diversion structure online, and the permitting effort that's associated with that. I'm well aware of the permitting challenges with the Corps. I've been involved in very large projects with Tricia, helping Greeley try to get Milton Seaman permitted. And so I understand the effort that it's going to take. But I'm very fortunate that we have engaged Tetra Tech to help us with that and feel that we have the right team to get it across the finish line. So that's really the thing that keeps me up is how quickly are we going to be able to get those permits out of the Corps?
Yes, Clark.
Thank you for the presentation. I applaud your emphasis on the water efficiency plan. And can you give us a couple examples of the demand management regulations or
Sure.
requirements that you impose on?
Sure. So what we did, and this is something I think some of the conversation before the meeting started, the legislature tends to try to implement things that are really not within the purview of special districts, if you will, which is, primarily land management and control. I have no purview over that. And so, but Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board does. And so what we've implemented within our rules and regulations is what Sterling Ranch has done, because that's proven. And so the things that they've done to achieve the amazing demand standards that they have out there, they have dual meters. So every home has indoor and outdoor meters. So we don't have to guess on what the indoor usage is. We know exactly what it is. They're all on the Rachio system, right? And so you can pull up on your iPhone how much water you've used. It also alerts you if you have a leak. And so you can take steps to account for that. There's also really strict landscaping codes. And I say strict, but it's not rocks and grasses, right? It's or those, I call them weeds, but those taller native grasses. It's really, they partnered with the Botanic Gardens very early on, and they had a test garden, if you will. And so they really identified those types of landscaping that thrive here in our climate. And so it's the type of landscaping that can attract birds or pollinators or other types. So when you buy a house in Sterling Ranch, I call it a guidebook, a playbook, if you will, where you can say, I really want to attract butterflies. And they can pull out a whole set of different types of landscaping that can attract that, but also will live and tolerate the types of conditions that we see out here. Also, which is inherent within any good demand management is, efficient rate structures. And so to go along with the indoor and outdoor meters, they have indoor and outdoor water budgets. And then within the indoor and outdoor water budgets, there's tiers. So there's 3 tiers within each of those water budgets. So if you stay within your water budget, you can anticipate a pretty reliable rate. If you start to go into those second and third tiers, that's where you start to see, some of those more penalty rates, if you will, to help drive your water efficiency down. Also, coding within the homes. Obviously, they're all new homes, so they all have WaterWise infrastructure. They have tankless hot water heaters, et cetera, that helps be as efficient in the home as possible.
Anyone else? Yes, William?
Thanks, Andrea. Great.
I should say Mickey, sorry.
I know, I've got a confusing card. Great presentation. I had a question about your service area. Is it fixed? Can it change? And if so, how do you change it or amend it?
Thanks, Mickey. So the service area is defined as part of our service plan. So when Dominion was created in 2004, that's the service plan that we're working off of. Although I will note within our existing service plan, while there's a boundary, it does indicate that we could provide water service to almost the entire county. I'm not really sure why it says that, but it does. And so as we move forward, our plan is to amend our service plan. One is dated. I mean, it's 2025. It's a very old, egregious service plan that needs to be revised. But really, we wanted to get the established district piece done first so that we could set that framework. And then as we modify that service plan, there is an opportunity to extend it if we choose to. And that's just a process that has to go through the Board of County Commissioners.
Anyone else? Yeah, Evan?
Evan Ela. I seem to recall, and I may be wrong about this, but isn't there some type of fish flow requirements on the stream between Strontia and Chatfield that are through, I think, Denver's federal permit or something like that?
It's a really good question. I had to do a lot of digging to actually find out the real reason for that. So when they constructed Strontia Reservoir in the 70s, they were inundating a portion of federal property. And so they had to get an easement to do that. As part of that easement, they agreed with the Fish and Wildlife Service to keep a minimum stream flow. That was amended after the drought. So the minimum stream flow requirements have changed. But essentially, Denver Water they're responsible for maintaining those minimum stream flow requirements, but they are not the same that was implemented in 1972. They're the ones that 2012 was when they were amended, and that's the new regime that the river sees.
Do you remember? Do you know what those flows are, or is it just two
it's
different
30,
flows, or is it
there's
several?
two flows, summer and winter, right?
Yeah.
So it's 30 and 15, but it's actually, if you skim it all down, it's actually 15. So they can't go below 15. Although there are, what's interesting is when they amended it in 2012. They were using the current language within Denver Water, which doesn't exist anymore. And so they talked about droughts and the stages of drought that Denver Water may implement. And so when you actually read it, their stage 1 is currently how they operate their system today, which means that they can keep less water in the river.
And then will Sterling Ranch then, or Dominion, have to work around that in some way with Denver?
So that is one of the primary reasons why the wastewater treatment plant is located upstream of the diversion structure, is to prevent a hole being created in the river. However, the monitoring gauge is Last Chance Ditch, which is upstream of all activity that Dominion is doing in the river.
Okay, anyone else? I have one question. It's just a curiosity question. You said something about the Aurora water, that you try not to rely on it as much. Is that true?
No, the Aurora water is what we rely on day in and day out.
Okay.
So there's two. Well, we actually have 3 contracts with Aurora, but 2 are firm contracts. So we have the Aurora 230, and they're named eloquently based on the amount of water that we get from Aurora. And essentially, the Smethills family went out and procured water rights that they knew that were of interest to the city. And they went to the city with those water rights and said, I'll give you these water rights, and in return, give me water at this location. Because they were water rights that would be very challenging to put into use within Dominion's service area. And so that's where those agreements came from. So that they're both firm agreements. They're our water supply. They're currently delivered through the Rampart system. However, by 2029, they will be delivered on the river.
Yeah, my only concern was that, is there a chance they can call those or cancel?
No.
So it's firmed. Okay, good.
No, they're dedicated water supplies. So
I knew the
we
one was,
dedicated
but-
water to them in return. And we actually dedicated almost 2 times the amount of water that we got in return.
Great. Okay, thank you. Perfect. Anybody else? Well, with all that being said, that was absolutely very informative, and thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
Well, at this point in time, I think we have come to the end of the road. Sorry, guys, but at any rate, what we'd like to do, we only have about 10 minutes left, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood, 10 or 15. If there's anything any member would like to bring up for discussion, this would be the time to do it. Seeing none, I would look at an adjournment, and so we are adjourned. Thank you.